Well, good morning and welcome to our Everything DiSC Agile EQ webinar. We're very excited about this new product, and I think the timing of it's very interesting as to what's happening in the world today, and along comes a product that can perhaps help us with how to deal with the dramatic changes that are taking place. So let's start by looking at what's been happening in the world for a while now. And I just need to get my mouse in the right place here. All right, so about 18 months ago, I was introduced to this idea of the VUCA environment that we're working in, that the world is living in. A world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We've been dealing with some volatility and uncertainty and all of that, but right now, that's just really ramped up to another level with the impact of this coronavirus globally. And so let's just track a little bit of what's been happening and why the psychology behind having an agile worker. And first of all, we started with disruption. We had Uber and Airbnb, for example, which disrupted their industries significantly. We've had others, of course. We've had changing technology, and that's really changing at the moment too, with so many people working from home and the strains that it's putting on the internet that we're experiencing right now. Organizations have also been changing structure. Most organizations used to be silo based, so you'd have departments and department heads and people in teams working in those departments. These days, a lot of organizations have switched to a matrix structure, and we have cross-functional teams, and we have project teams, and we have people working on different teams, not just an intact team. We've also got agile workplaces where people don't have the fixed desk to themselves anymore. They come in and take a desk that's available. And it's called the Agile workplace. Meeting areas, many meeting areas where people can just spontaneously get together and have a meeting or collaborate about something. So that's a significant trend that's going on at the moment. And because of that, there's a need for evolving talent in our employees. They need to be more agile in being able to work with many different people. So they've got to develop new skills and develop the talent that they maybe weren't tested on before. All right. So we've got all the systems and processes and stuff that are changing to make us more agile, but we can't do that without people, especially agile people. All right. So that's really what we're focusing on today is how can we help people be more agile, more adaptable. Wiley did a survey just recently to identify how important agility was to people, and they surveyed 2,500 people, and this is earlier this year. Of the individual contributors that they surveyed, 90% of them said that agility is more important to their success now than it was 5 years ago. Of the managers that were surveyed, they said agility is more important to their organization's success now than it was 5 years ago. And 97% of people in leadership roles agree that developing emotional intelligence is crucial to building an agile workforce. So I just thought I'd share that latest bit of research with you. So building an agile organization starts with developing emotional intelligence. So I'm sure all of you are very familiar with emotional intelligence and different models of emotional intelligence. I know some people who be on this call who use other emotional intelligence assessments. And but as far as what I'm going to talk about and what's behind the Agile EQ profile is a very basic model, Daniel Goleman's model, 4 competencies. First of all, in the intrapersonal space, we have self-awareness. That's the first step in becoming more emotionally intelligent. Am I aware of myself and what I'm doing? Am I aware of my behavior and the impact that it's having? Am I aware what drives my behavior? Am I aware about why I do things, what my needs are, and the emotions that are triggered by my needs to act in a certain way. All right. And then secondly, we have self-management. So there's an awareness and a management in both of these areas. So once being aware of what I do and why I do it, do I have the ability to manage my behavior, to manage my emotions, so that I can behave in appropriate ways when I've got some emotions going on that might result in inappropriate reactions. Okay. And then on the interpersonal side, obviously social awareness, as Goleman called it. He actually published a book called Social Intelligence to focus more on this side of the model. Being aware of others. That's the beauty of DiSC, isn't it? Makes people more self-aware, but it also makes them more aware of others and why they're behaving the way they are. What are their needs and feelings that are causing them to behave that way? All right, and then having that awareness, how do I adapt to manage those relationships more effectively? So that's a very basic emotional intelligence model, and we'll see how the Agile EQ fits into that. So Dr. Mark Scullard, the Director of Research at Wiley, came up with this definition for the Agile EQ profile, for the emotional intelligence, as we're using it in the Agile EQ profile. The ability to adapt my behaviors, thoughts, and emotions to best meet the demands of a wide variety of interpersonal or emotionally charged situations, right? He went on to say we could actually simplify that right down to the ability to adapt to the demands of different situations, all right? And so if I'm going to have the ability to adapt to different situations, we need to start with why am I behaving the way I am? Why am I doing things the way I am? All right, so the Agile EQ profile, like all other everything DiSC profiles, is based on the adaptive testing questionnaire, the base questionnaire that determines where your dot falls in a DiSC map. It comes with a facilitator kit. In the facilitator kit, there's structured modules for a 4-hour session for debriefing the profile and working on increasing agility by adapting. Great videos, a lot of videos in this particular kit. I'm going to show you a couple of them just a little later on in this webinar. And they really do a very good job of showing people how they can actually adapt the way they think and then behave. All right. It also includes a supplement for facilitators. It's a little different to the others, except it does have an umbrella graph and it does have unexpected items. It's just in the third section where you have priorities that it's a little bit different to the other profiles. Okay. You can also put this into myeverythingdisc.com and use it as your base report for doing comparison reports. And of course, you can generate comparison reports between teammates and so on. So basically similar to all other DiSC profiles in that sense. All right, so where does this fit in relation to workplace profile? I'm assuming everyone's familiar with workplace profile, but just in case you're not, that's the generic DiSC profile that you could use with pretty much anyone. It's focused on building relationships, and hence the reason in that graphic on the left, the DiSC map, we have 2 dots. So we have a person who's in the D style, quite strongly inclined, who is working with someone who's a CS style, quite strongly inclined. So the focus of the workplace profile is how does this D style person adapt to meet the needs of the CS style person so they can work together more effectively, they can communicate more effectively, etc. So it's how do you respond to another person, all right? In the Agile EQ profile, we're focusing on how an individual responds to different situations. And we're going to come back to this D-style person in a moment and look at how might they go about adapting to use 3 different mindsets, which the arrows are pointing to there. We'll talk about the mindsets in just a moment, okay? All right, so there's 3 sections in the profile, which correspond to the 3 modules outlined in the facilitator kit curriculum. All right, the first module is about your style and your strengths. It's designed to make the individual feel good about themselves. Everybody has emotional intelligence strengths, and the profile highlights that in the first module. All right, so that's the main focus of that. And unlike other EQ assessments, this profile is not measuring whether you are high or low on emotional intelligence. All right, it's measuring the degree to which you use certain mindsets and the degree to which you need to adapt to use different ones. Okay, so when we get on to section 2, it's then recognizing the mindsets that don't come naturally to this person. All right, so what are my opportunities for stretching myself? What are the mindsets that I could learn to adapt to use that don't come naturally to me? And then, and of course, in step 3, step 3 of section 3, we're looking at ACT. Okay, developing an action plan. How are we going to adapt to use another mindset? All right. Okay, so let's start with the first module, the first section, and the foundation of the profile, really, and the model behind it is here on page 5 in the profile. Here you will see a circle around the outside for each of the 8 scales. Now, in all of the other everything DiSC profiles, the self-assessment DiSC profiles, you will find priorities around the outside of the DiSC map. And there's one priority for each of the 8 scales, right? The scales being DIS and C, and DIS, SC, and CD, okay? This time we have mindsets, all right? A state of mind. People go into situations with a certain mindset, right? And many of you know that my profile is SI. I have an extra priority on action in the workplace profile. But that means my number 1 mindset here would be empathizing, all right? But the profile is going to actually give me 3 mindsets that I naturally tend to use. So it's going to take the one closest to my dot, which is empathizing, and then I get the ones either side of it, outgoing and receptive. And so they're my 3 emotional intelligence strengths, and we'll see how that shows up in the profile in just a moment. Okay, so what that means is the other 5 mindsets don't come naturally to me, and so I may need to use more energy to adapt to use those. Okay, so if you look at the empathizing mindset, they're reaching out with compassion, seeking to understand people's emotional needs and struggles, and being supportive. Okay, there's times when that works really well, when the other person needs some compassion, they need someone to understand them and how they're feeling and to be supported. But if the situation is very different from that, that mindset isn't going to work very effectively. And of course, that would be a situation where if I'm aware of it, I could then learn to switch to use another mindset. So that's really the whole nuts and bolts of what the profile is about. Understanding what you naturally tend to do and learning to adapt to use different mindsets. So let's have a look at, first of all, why are we talking about mindsets? Okay, it's because it's your thinking that needs to shift, even if your values or your needs don't shift. So we're not asking people to change their personality. That's not really easy to do anyway, is it? Okay, maybe impossible. We're not asking people to change their values about what's right or wrong. What we're asking them to do is to think about in what situations could you think differently and deal with the situation more effectively. Okay, so it's like creating a mental model of, okay, in this situation I need to think like this and I need to do that. Okay, and we'll see an example of that in one of the videos that we'll be looking at a bit later. So on pages 6 and 7 of the profile, each person will get a description of the 3 mindsets that are most natural for them. All right, so which come most naturally. This is actually not my profile. This is the sample report, Sabina. Sabina is an IS style, strongly inclined. So her 3 mindsets are the same as mine. Okay, and like with page 4 in the workplace profile, we would ask people to tick cross question mark. How accurate is this, to personalize it? You'll also see there that, I'll blow that up a little bit, that it goes into some bullet points there, that what are the benefits of this mindset? Okay, so you're better able to do these things, but what would happen if you got stuck in this mindset in a situation where it was not effective? All right, and you could see some examples there of how it could be ineffective. all right? Minimizing your own needs to attend to those of others, okay? There's times where that's not going to work for you, okay? And I know that from personal experience because I think I've done that once or twice. Okay, and so page 8 in the report is my favorite page because for the first time in many, many years, Wiley are actually coming out and saying that DiSC is a needs-driven behavioral model. Now, anyone who's been to any of our training, whether it be a DiSC session or certification training, or even 5 behaviors, we'll talk about the whole person concept, the iceberg model, all right? With your behavior, the tip of the iceberg above the surface, and at the bottom of the iceberg are your needs, your instinctive needs that drive your behavior, all right? And so here we have on page 8 in the profile, the emphasis first being on the 3 strengths at the top, but where do they come from? What's powering that? And it's the 4 needs that we see at the bottom. Before I go to the needs, so let me just zoom in on the 3 needs. Now we're looking at a CD style now, all right? So complete opposite to Sabina. And her strengths are, she's objective. This is not Sabina, sorry. This person's objective, they're resolute, and they're self-assured, right? Objective being the C style mindset, resolute being the CD DiSC style, and the I'm self-assured is the D style, of course, okay? And you can see that those mindsets would be very valuable in specific situations, okay? Also on this page is the impact I might have on others, all right? So people with this style will find that other people value their expertise, they know their standards are high, they trust their critical thinking, but they also may wonder if I like them because the CD-DiSC style doesn't show a lot of feeling in their facial expressions, all right? And so people may also worry that they're dissatisfied with things by their body language, okay? But then at the bottom of the page, we have the 4 needs that power the 3 strengths up the top there. What's interesting, and we'll see this in a moment, is that not only do these 4 needs power the strengths, they're also the reason why this person would have difficulty moving away from a situation where those needs could be satisfied, that is, adapting, why they'd be uncomfortable using other mindsets. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of that. All right, so here we have this CD style person. First of all, if we look at the dynamic mindset, all right, which is initiating action on your ideas, influencing people, projecting a strong social presence. It's putting yourself out there. That's taking a bit of a risk. So that need to protect my dignity and credibility would tend to be threatened there, that I may not be able to get that satisfied, all right? And maybe even to meet high standards. Can I guarantee I'm going to achieve high standards if I really put myself out there in a dynamic way? And then the other thing we could look at here too is their ability to adapt to use the empathizing mindset. How are their needs going to be impacted by that? Well, an empathizing mindset is reaching out with compassion, seeking to understand people's emotional needs and support them, all right? So how's that going to, how my needs for control and independence, and again, to protect my dignity and credibility, if I'm coming across as being empathizing and supportive, all right? So that's an interesting facet of this, is that the needs drive the strengths, but they also are the reason why people need to learn to make why it's uncomfortable for them to adapt to use a different mindset, okay? All right, so let's go on to section 2 of the profile and back to the value of others' approaches. And the focus of this module is to open people's eyes to the fact that there are other opportunities for them to learn additional mindsets. For example, for Sabina, who is the empathizing mindset, to get her thinking, well, why couldn't I be more resolute or self-assured from the opposite side of the DiSC map, all right? They're also starting to realize by this point that actually everybody has to struggle to adapt to use different mindsets. So we're really all in the same boat because we've going to move away from what's comfortable for us, Okay. All right. So in the next section of the profile, we're going to see each of 5 pages, one for each of the 5 mindsets that don't come naturally to you. So here is an example of a resolute mindset, and this is Sabina again, the IS style. All right, and the resolute mindset is the DCCD scale mindset, right? And so it gives Sabina an example of a situation where she might need to use the resolute mindset, but her natural tendency would not to be. All right, and it gives her an example there of what it actually means for her. It's about standing by your ideas and needs in the face of opposition, etc. Okay, but the next piece is really important. That's why should she do it? Okay, and I'll just zoom in on that a little bit. She should do it because standing firm protects her needs and beliefs and can head off long-term problems and so on. Okay, so an important part of this section is getting people to accept the fact that it's going to be valuable for them to learn to do that. All right, and before we get off of this page, I just want to zoom in on, I'm not going to physically zoom in, but your attention on the effort meter. All right, so how much effort does this take for you, Sabina? And you can see she's bordering on the light green and the yellow there, which means she has some ability to use this resolute mindset. All right, now if you recall, her dot was very strongly inclined IS, and resolute is DCCD, completely opposite her. Okay, so how does the profile know that she actually has some ability to do this with less effort than someone whose needle would be round at a lot? Okay, in fact, you might think it should be a lot. The reason is when a person's taking this profile, they have additional questions that are product specific to the Agile EQ profile, which are asking the respondent, how much effort does it take for you to do such and such, right? And they're answering that in terms of how they feel they would be, how comfortable they feel they would be doing it, right? So Sabina has responded to the questions about the CDDC mindset that she's actually somewhat comfortable doing it, all right? So there are 5 pages, and so they've got a effort meter on each of the 5 pages. In fact, I think my next slide takes you there. All right, so we can see all 5 of them, and we have an effort meter on each of them. And the position of the needle on the effort meters comes from your own questions. So it's actually personalized to you. All right. And so because it's your opposite mindset does not automatically mean it's going to take you a lot of effort. If you have developed some adaptability, the profile is going to pick up on that. Okay, so this is a really important section. Let's have a look at what we're actually measuring here in terms of the comfort stretching and the impact that the needs might have on that. Okay, so here we have our D-style person again. And this person, when they're answering the questionnaire, is going to get questions like, and these are not actual questions from them, I'm just giving an example here. So how easy or difficult is it for you to stop yourself when you're really impatient from interrupting the other person? All right, because the person who is composed, has a composed mindset, reflects before acting. They moderate their responses even under stress. All right, and so now when you're getting really impatient with someone and you feel like interrupting them, that's probably not a bad time to be a little bit more composed, is it? Okay, and so if the person who's responding, this D-style person, says, well, it's not easy for me at all, then they're probably going to get a meter that says a lot, like this one shows here. Let's look at an example for the receptive mindset for this same person. So how easy is it for you to listen to other people's opinions when you already know the right path to take? All right. The receptive mindset is staying open to others' ideas and being willing to compromise or set aside your own needs and preferences. Okay. As you can imagine, the strong D-style person might have a bit of trouble, especially when they know which path they want to take. Okay, so awareness obviously is going to be a big step to being able to move to that mindset. Okay, and then one more example, the empathizing mindset. How easy would it be for you to set aside your sense of urgency to consider others' feelings and needs? Okay, because that's what the empathizing mindset does, doesn't it? All right, it's focusing on others' needs and feelings and having empathy. All right, so so that's what the second section is about. It's looking at the mindsets that you're not naturally strong in and identifying one that you think you would be best to develop. Okay, so as part of the kit, the facilitator kit, I mentioned there's a lot of videos. Anyone who's familiar with the workplace profile facilitator kit and the videos in that, in the latest version, will recognize these 4 characters. You might have trouble recognizing Sally with a different haircut, but it's the same Sally who has a D style. And the way the kit works is when you get to this slide in your PowerPoint, you ask your participants, which of these 4 characters would you like to see operating from their one of their typical mindsets, all right? And in a situation where they're getting stuck, all right? In other words, it didn't really work for them, all right? And you could click on the name of the person and the program will jump to the video for that particular person. And then when you finish watching that video, you can come back to this menu by clicking on that slide, or you can go on and see another one. Okay, so I chose Stephanie as our example here. And Stephanie is going to have a meeting with Tom, who's the S-style person. You can see she's the I-style. And Stephanie's going to be using her empathizing mindset, okay?
Hi, I am so sorry I'm late. My last meeting ran totally long.
Yeah, meetings are taking over my life.
At least it is Friday.
Yeah.
Wait, tell me everything with the presentation is amazing, and there is nothing wrong.
Okay, sections 1 and 3 seem strong, but Amir just told me we have to completely rewrite the case studies.
By Monday.
Yeah, I mean, Monday's the pitch.
Wonderful.
And, you know, I know it's my turn to work the weekend, but I was kind of hoping we could do it together.
I can't work the weekend. Mom's flying in Saturday, and besides, I've worked 3 weekends in a row. I sort of have plans.
Yeah? Okay.
Uh-oh. What's wrong? You okay?
Yeah, it's just, you know, the presentation is Monday, and it has to go well. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you're right. It's totally stressful.
Yeah, I mean, if we were just talking about the deliverables or the intro, I'd be like, no problem, 100% confident. Especially because I know the clients. These case studies.
Tom's a great writer, but oh man, he's really freaked out. I totally get it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you'll work on it with me?
I can't put this all on him. Maybe I can move some things around.
Yeah, really?
Really, I mean, I totally know how you're feeling and I can just feel the stress radiating off of you. And if I change some plans, I think I can make it work.
Okay, well, change some plans. It wasn't anything important, right?
Oh, no. What is important is that we feel ready for Monday. Okay, Stephanie, it's okay. Hopefully Mom can hang out and watch TV or something.
Okay, so Stephanie got stuck in her empathizing mindset, and poor old Mum's going to miss out on spending as much time with her on the weekend. Okay, so it's each of the videos in this section are just showing a person doing what comes naturally. And if any of you watching this have an SI style, an IS style, and even an I style or an S style, you probably can relate to that. All right, not wanting to let someone down, or and putting your own needs aside. Okay, because it's you know, if you look at the needs for the IS-SI style, and I've got my own profile here, all right, the needs are to connect with others, to create a harmonious environment, to be accepted, and to be helpful and supportive, all right? And so those needs are driving Stephanie to want to help Tom over the weekend. Okay, even though she had other important plans. Okay, so at this point in time, we now have an opportunity to watch 2 other videos. We can see Stephanie use an objective mindset to respond to Tom, or a self-assured mindset. And if we were in the actual program, in the kit, we could just click on objective and go watch that, and then come back here and then click on self-assured and watch that example. And there are many, many more examples for each of the styles, by the way. And I'm just showing you 2. And I chose then this one, the self-assured mindset, in the interest of time. So let's have a look at Stephanie using a self-assured mindset instead of the empathizing mindset.
And, you know, I know it's my turn to work the weekend, but I was kind of hoping we could do it together.
I can't work the weekend. Mom's flying in Saturday, and besides, I've worked 3 weekends in a row. I sort of have plans.
Yeah? Okay.
Uh-oh. What's wrong? You seem stressed. Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, if it was just the deliverables or the intro, I'd be like, no problem, 100% confident. You know, especially because I know the clients. But these case studies...
He's kind of freaked out. But Tom's a really great writer. You know what? You are a really great writer. Okay, let's figure this out.
So you'll work on it with me this weekend?
Oh, it's okay. You can say no. You deserve a weekend off too. No. I can't. My mom's in town.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you should then. So where should I start? From the background? Or?
Okay, here's the plan. It's not like we're starting from scratch.
Right.
All of my write-ups are on the drive. So look through my files in there, follow that model. You've got your notes from the client.
Yeah, right.
And if that doesn't work out, we can always minimize that part of the presentation. No problem.
Okay, sounds good, yeah. Okay, I'm still a little nervous, but this really helps.
Good, and you know what? If you want to, we can always meet up on Monday to discuss everything.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, so Stephanie moved to a self-assured mindset, which is asserting your opinions and rights, projecting confidence in your ideas, and taking charge of situations. Okay. Now you'll also notice on the screen here, before I go to the next slide, that at the end of that video, we can actually go back to the main menu, which is where we'll see the 4 characters. Or we can switch to watch Stephanie's other mindset video, which was the objective mindset. Okay. And so we have choices as to how we move through this, and also how many videos you have time to show, because there's a lot of them. I don't have any examples in this particular presentation, but in addition to the 4 characters that we're familiar with from Workplace Profile, there are 4 new characters, one for each of the combination styles. So someone who's a DI, someone who's an IS, someone who's an SC, and someone who's a CD style. Okay, and then there's all the videos of them in their natural mindset, and then adapting to use different mindsets and so on. Okay, so there's a lot of material, a lot of videos. Okay, so module 2 is about deciding on what change we want to make, which EQ mindset is most important for me to develop, and each person will just decide on which one they're going to go for. All right, and module 3 then will focus on how do we make that change. All right, so let's go into module 3 in the profile, and here you will see Sabina is choosing the self-assured mindset, okay, which is the D style, and it gives her a little bit of an intro there, personalizes it for her, and to be self-assured, she may need to push against certain thoughts, like it's just not worth the mess this will create, right? Because her needs are saying, be accepted, right? Don't create a mess, all right? So these thoughts are likely to come up, and the idea here is that you will identify the thoughts that actually do come up for you in that situation, all right? And of course, it's the needs that are driving those thoughts, all right? She wants to be helpful and supportive, she wants to be accepted, etc. Okay, another example, I want to do what's best for the team. And again, she wants to be a helpful, supportive team member. Okay, and so tendency to be willing to put her own needs aside, which is not what you would call self-assured, is it? Okay, so from there we go to the bottom half of the page where we look at where am I starting from in moving towards using the self-assured mindset? Am I a beginner? Or am I got a bit of skill? I'm at the intermediate level, or I'm fairly advanced here, but I've still got some room to improve. Okay, so the participant reads through the bullet points there and decides on which one of those they think describes them most accurately, which lets them know whether they're starting at beginner, intermediate, or advanced. And then they go to the next page. There's 2 pages for each of the mindsets. And now we're going into depth in each of those 3 steps to help develop action plans. Okay, so and from there we're going to go to the action planning section in the profile. Right, so for your mindset, turn to where should you start. Right, then read through the list until you find where you're going to start. Note the category on the next page and review the action steps, and then turn to page 26 in the profile and develop an action plan. Okay, I'm just going to check in and see if we have some questions here that have been typed into the chat box or the Q&A pod while we've been going through this. And yes, we have. Okay. One is a comment more than a question. That is, I think we need to redirect this to address the virus situation. How do we connect the dots? Yeah, look, I think the current situation we're facing with people working from home and offices being shut down is a whole new way of connecting with each other. But there's also a lot of fear around. There's a lot of people feeling very anxious, as they should be. It's very potentially threatening time, and so being receptive, the S-style mindset, and listening to people and their concerns, being empathizing, understanding how they're feeling and supporting them. But we also need to be dynamic. We need to be innovative and come up with new ideas on how we're going to communicate. There's so much more happening now in terms of virtual learning, webinars and stuff popping up. Okay, so yes, we can be more conscious of how we deal with the situation if we have the understanding of, hey, what are the mindsets I tend to use, and is it working for me, and what else could I use? Okay, so I think it's a very good application for the profile. There's a comment here. I presume that the effort is based on the way that someone has answered the questions rather than their DiSC style. Therefore, it's personalized. That's precisely correct. The effort meter needle is moved based on how you answered the product-specific questions. I think there's around 20 questions that people are responding to about the mindset. So it's measuring, to some extent, your adaptability, okay, or your perception of your adaptability. Okay, is there a supplement for facilitator report with this? I did mention that earlier, and I mentioned that it's a little bit different. What's different is in the other DiSC profiles, you have a priority subscale graph at the bottom of the page, which shows how high you scored on each of the 8 priorities. In this one, you have a mindset graph, which shows you how high you scored on each of the mindsets, the degree to which you've, and so you might have a mindset where you've scored quite high on it that isn't one of your 3 most natural ones, okay? But unlike the other profiles, you're not going to get any striped shading in your DiSC map. What you are going to get is the needle moving on the effort meters, okay? So that's how that's going to show up, okay? Because you had an additional priority in the workplace profile does not mean that your effort meter will be in the green area in this profile, because that priority doesn't necessarily translate into the same thing when we're measuring adaptability with mindsets. It might do, but it might not necessarily so, okay? How should this profile be used? As a progression on from the DiSC workplace assessment or standalone? Look, I can see some advantages of people understanding their DiSC style and the needs and fears of their style and being really familiar with DiSC before going into this. But the profile's designed so that you don't have to do that. And in fact, I didn't look at pages 2 and 3. I didn't show you pages 2 and 3. Pages 2 and 3 in the profile are a basic introduction to DiSC and your DOT, and whether you're strongly inclined or slightly inclined, etc. Okay, so you can go straight into this profile. One thing I would do, and especially those of you been through our accreditation or certification training in the last few years, would know that we use the whole person concept or iceberg model, that because DiSC is a needs-driven behavioral model, and we also use the DiSC theory model that is based on the need for control and need for affiliation. All right, and how that translates into the 4 styles and the needs and fears of the 4 styles. I would include that in a session around Agile EQ if people had not been through DiSC previously. So they just, when they get to page 8, which is where they see the needs that drive their mindset, they've got a little bit more context around the needs and why those needs are so important. Okay. This next question is pretty much the same. I'm interested to know about using this if people have not used DiSC. I've just answered that. Someone asked, what is the level of reliability of these assessments? The assessment primarily is the adaptive testing assessment. So the research report that's available to you through your myeverythingdisc.com account or from our website, or it's the same questionnaire that's measuring where your dot falls. So very high levels of reliability, average 0.85, where 1 is perfectly reliable. Retest reliability, average 0.85 for the 8 scales. So it's an extremely reliable assessment. I have not seen a research report yet for the product-specific questions, but no doubt that will be coming out. And I can assure you that Wiley don't publish anything that isn't scientifically sound. Okay. Someone's asked if the workplace profile can be edited for this profile, and I'm assuming what you mean by that is, can we use existing data? And there's 2 or 3 other people have asked a similar question. Yes, you can use existing data. What that means is, if someone's taken a workplace profile, when you go in to send out the link for them to do Agile EQ, you're asked on the screen if you want to use existing data. And if you click on that, it'll bring up a little window for you to search for that person's workplace profile. And when you find that workplace profile, it'll take all of their responses to the adaptive testing assessment and copy them into the Agile EQ profile. Then when you send them the link, they will only get the 20 or so additional items that are product specific to measure their adaptability between mindsets. Okay, does that make sense? So that's what we mean by using existing data. Someone asked, does it cost the same amount of EPIC credits if you're using existing data? Yes, it does. You're not paying for someone to take the profile. You're paying for the report they get back. All right, so you're saving them time by using existing data. They don't have to answer all of those questions again. You're also having their dot fall in the same place as it did last time. So you don't have to deal with questions of why did my dot move, when they're really the only person that can answer that question anyway. There's a question here about, do you have to be accredited or can you just purchase the kit? There is no accreditation for this. So if you've been through our accreditation or certification training, you have access to all of the Everything DiSC profiles. And yes, you can just purchase the facilitator kit. Another question was, how much does the kit cost? The kits are $1,600, $1,600. There was a price increase on January 1. But of course, you can use that with as many groups as you like. And there's so many videos, and this really is worth the investment to be able to illustrate. I thought the videos, and I've watched pretty much all of them, are very realistic. You know, you saw with Stephanie there when she was adapting to use a self-assured mindset. She was still struggling internally, wasn't she? The empathizing mindset was still pushing her. Those needs were still pushing her to want to help Tom. All right. But because she'd created a mental model for herself to say, no, I've got to say no, and I've got to explain why, and I need to also reassure Tom that he's very capable of doing this. Okay. And I think all of the videos have been extremely well done in that regard, and people can actually see themselves being able to do that. And I think that's key. Okay. Someone's asked any tips for adjusting sessions to Zoom. Well, I'm using Zoom right now. You can embed videos into your PowerPoint here. It really does depend on the bandwidth of the person who's watching at the other end as to how well the videos will play. But there's a little trick in Zoom that, where is it? All right, I've got to go this way. Yeah. If you click on more, at the top of the screen in the hosts menu, it says share computer sound, and the sound will come through very well on the videos even if the other doesn't. Okay. All right. So I think that's all the questions. Yes, I think we've covered everything there. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Before you go, though, just want to wrap up next steps. Okay. If you or someone you know would like to experience the Everything DiSC Agile EQ profile and attend a 2-hour virtual workshop to debrief that, we're going to be facilitating 2 of these 2-hour workshops in April, and one on the 16th from 2 till 4 in the afternoon, and one on the 17th from 9:30 to 11:30. And the fee for that will be $250 plus GST, I should add. And included in that, of course, the person will be taking away their own profile and supplement for facilitators. They'll be taking away an action plan to develop one of the mindsets, and we'll also be offering a one-on-one coaching follow-up call for people who have attended that. Okay. And so last point, while you're developing a series of virtual workshops based around the profiles, you can contact us at support@integro.com.au for more information. All of us are working from home at the moment. Our phones are diverted to Kelly, so 1-800-222-902, I think, or 02-8977-0200. But please, if you can, email would be better because of the diversion and working from home bit at the moment. So thank you very much for joining me and tuning into this. And we look forward to continuing to support you through this challenging situation, and you'll be hearing more from us about more virtual training opportunities. Thank you.